And then there are problems which are known as wicked problems, where you're not clear what the problem is. And funnily, every new solution reframes the problem. And you can only think about the solution in terms of good, better, and best. And new solutions require testing and iteration. So, tame problems in business, it may be simple, it may be complicated, but can be solved. And over time, you come across or you develop some kind of an algorithm to solve this. Whereas wicked problems are complex, almost unsolvable, and there is no algorithm for this. So the only way you can approach these problem solutions would be through heuristics. So some examples of tame problems could be how do you improve productivity, or if you're planning to use a new ingredient, what is the structure of it, or how can you drive sales growth, or how can we become more efficient in procurement. Whereas wicked problems would be things like strategy, which is about transformation of an organization, which is about growth with sustainability, which is about innovation, new product development. And the key characteristics of a wicked problem is there are multiple stakeholders, all of them have different values and priorities. The roots of the problem are quite complex and tangled. For example, market saturation, competition, low disposable income. And the kind of challenges these problems pose, you require different capabilities, and the solutions are often risky. And sometimes, if you come across with multiple solutions, they might conflict with one another. And there is no precedent. There is no precedent to how this may have been done before because the situation is quite different. And there is no way of knowing whether this is the right answer or not. So, the true characteristics of most challenging business problems is that more you try to get to the solution, the problem reveals itself more and more. And the solution leads to more problem, which requires more solution. And that cycle pretty much continues in areas of wicked problems, as I described. So we know that there is no complete solution, and therefore we do not attempt to solve it. Instead, we form a team to design the future. So, which really is the approach design thinking takes, which is how can I constitute creative teams who can come up with the best perspective and can solve this problem. And we develop multiple parallel perspectives simultaneously, and we talk to each other and we design a response. And we ensure that this response incorporates the learning and it incorporates the growth and the mutation of the problem. So, this is an approach which came from Stanford University. And design thinking has 5 steps. You develop empathy, you define the problem, you ideate around it, you prototype, and then you test it. So, you understand needs, you understand the problem, you challenge the assumptions, you create new ideas, then you solve, and then you test it. This is an iterative nonlinear process. So therefore, your attempt at every stage is to make it better. So there are multiple examples where and how it has been used. I will share one example, and this is about how kids might feel during an ECG. As you know, when you go for any kind of a scan, uh, CAT scan, or any kind of complicated scanning, you normally run through a tunnel. And this is very, very claustrophobic, definitely for adults. And imagine how difficult and how challenging this problem is for kids. So GE was grappling with this problem, and they found that most hospitals, they found that kids were terrified of going through this CAT scan tunnel, and they would scream and cry, and therefore oftentimes they would not participate in this. So they understood they defined the problem, they understood what could be happening. And this is the design that you can see on the screen that they came up with. And this is a parade theme, and this is a jungle theme, CAT scan room where the kid pretty much takes place or takes uh, part in this kind of adventure, looks around and finds many interesting things, and often forgets that this is going to be, sort of how the child will go through the CAT scan, and the child is quite happy and goes through that exercise. So this, I thought, is a great example of how GE came up with how you can design a CAT scan for children. Now, over to how you can potentially build your profile, both as a student as well as when you become a professional. One of the things that has already been suggested and iterated by Professor Bikram is about skill sets, thinking skill sets. So, in particular, it is about creative thinking, critical thinking, and actionable thinking. So, all those three areas are fully flexed, fully used in as part of design thinking. The second one is how you can build your profile. Third, how you can potentially use it for group discussions and how you can use it for interview. So, firstly, when you are building your profile, you can come up with different potential solutions. You can be as creative as you like. And then you will perhaps create a draft profile where you will look at storytelling, quantitative achievements, qualitative attributes, etc. And then you will gather feedback and refine. You'll perhaps talk to a mentor or a peer or professional in the field, and you'll get feedback on the effectiveness. So, this is how design thinking works in real life. And then you will implement that profile. And as part of design thinking, we continuously improve upon what we have achieved. And you'll realize, be it a LinkedIn profile or be it your own profile that you have created at this point in time, you will keep on iterating and fine tuning it. Let's look at group discussion. One of the areas of group discussion is how do you define the goals of the discussion and desired outcome? So, this is about framing the discussion. And again, design thinking allows you to frame the same discussion in multiple different ways. You can refine the topic, you can visualize the ideas, and once you have done that, as you move into the main discussion, you can ideate, you can encourage active participation, build on each other's idea, and make the group discussion quite productive. As part of the interview preparation, empathy dictates, it warrants us to know what are the qualities and skills would be required for a successful MBA candidate. Is it about data driven analysis? Is it about creative problem solving? Is it about ethical leadership? So, all of that is part of our ability to understand what is expected. And then, what is my competition? Once you have done that, you might potentially come up with how you are going to present yourself. Are you going to present as a strong analytical candidate, or are you going to demonstrate your leadership, or are you going to show how aware you are about ethical responsibilities of a manager? Are you going to display your communication skills? Perhaps some of these, perhaps all of these. So that's something you can potentially think about. And then you will start with small experiments. You will implement the idea at a manageable scale, get feedback from maybe your mentors, academics, other students, peers. And based on that, you will analyze the results and you will adapt and evolve. So that's how uh, design thinking works. It is an iterative process. And as I said, there is absolutely no right or wrong answer. It is about good, better, best. I stop here and I wish you all the best. Thank you. Any questions, comments, clarifications?
So as of now, we have only one question in the Q&A box asking, what does a good profile look like?
Yeah, so I will try and sort of provide answer based on my experience, and then I'll hand over to Professor Vikram to add his point of view. So essentially, anytime you're talking or thinking about a profile, it should be thought about as an exercise where you're able to define yourself as well as where you're able to differentiate yourself. So there are two parts. The first part is who you are, what your interests are, what are your uh, life experiences, what are some of the things that excites you. So this is how we pretty much introduce ourselves, define ourselves, that this is who I am, this is what I have done, and this is where I have reached. Alongside this, it is equally important to stand out. Alongside this, I ought to be able to demonstrate that this is how I'm different. This is how I think. This is how I execute. This is how I analyze a given situation. And these are my strong points. And we need to think about, which is why I talked about during my session, which is why you may want to think about what is the competitive field that you are up against. What are the qualities? What are the experiences? And how can you demonstrate those experiences well? So, in a short and succinct way, and these days there's a lot of emphasis on getting it within a page. So, it is about how do you put across who you are and how different you are. Okay, now I'll hand over to Professor Vikram.
Thank you, Professor Kalyan. And I fully agree to what you stated. It's about the individual on two areas. One about what are they all about, and how do they differentiate between the rest of the people. When they talk about what they are, they should clearly know whether, as a part of undergrad, whether there's an engineer or a BCom, BAC, BBA, whatever course they have done. What is something which they really liked about doing that course, and what is something key learnings they've got from that, which has helped them shape as an individual. And in terms of what is so unique about them, what skills are they looking at developing themselves? And in the short term, what are they trying to develop after doing a course in MBA? Or what are they focusing on? Which area they are focusing on? So that's also clarity needs to come in while looking at those aspects. So it's extremely important for a student that when they are looking at deciding what kind of profile they're going to develop, one, as an individual, their resumes are a reflection of what they are in terms of what they have achieved till now in their life. And also, what are the hidden pieces in the resume in terms of the skill sets they have, which they need to introspect and come out and share. Because resume may not share, may talk about their grades, may talk about the projects, but how they've gone about doing and achieving certain things, that needs to be shared when they're having a discussion with anyone. And that really helps the individual in coming out clearly about what they are looking at in terms of as an individual, or when an institute is looking at a student. And that is something really important. The resumes may show all the kind of results, may talk about the projects, but what exactly it is, the student should do a deep dive in explaining and analyzing it and sharing. And that's something really helps in terms of how they're communicating it. And that's really important. That's what I like to share.